G'day mates, in today's video I'm going to cover everything that happened today in the FNCS qualifiers, including why some of the biggest pros in the world, Clix, Miro, Bugha, Cented, are calling Epic Games a joke and how they got scammed out of qualifying for the FNCS. Also, we had some massive names not even make it to the finals today, like Benji and Savage, and this being one of the hardest qualifiers and biggest upsets we've ever seen. So there's a lot to talk about. Let's just jump into it. Let's kick off talking about what happened with Epic scamming some of the biggest players in the world. Clix and Cented, Bugha, Miro, what happened? Because normally I kick off my videos talking about EU, but we're opening up with NAEs because this one was crazy. We had NAEs round 2 and round 3 today, same as we did for all the regions. Round 3 is incredibly important. Round 3 is the final set lobby of qualifier 1. If you get top 8 in this, you don't have to play the 2 rounds tomorrow, or sorry, the round 1 tomorrow and round 2 and 3 the day after, and you don't have to play semis. You are going straight into grand finals where you're playing for NA East a share of over $600,000 and EU a share of over $1 million. So this is a huge deal. And on NA East going into game 5, unfortunately, we had 7 teams, 13 players not connect. So we're talking over 10% of the lobby, about 20% of the lobby almost not connecting into the game. So you imagine Epic would restart the game. Unfortunately, they didn't. Epic chose not to restart the game. And this wasn't an issue with all of these streamers. This wasn't when we've had problems in the past where, you know, internet service providers cut out internet to a whole bunch of pro players, or there's natural disasters and power issues in certain areas. This was something that was directly attributed to Epic's fault. We had connection issues on EU today earlier as well, but the game won because 40 people didn't connect. They restarted, they pushed the tournament back, and it went for 30 minutes longer. But on NA, when 13 people didn't connect, they didn't do anything. And the reason why people were so upset is because one of these teams was Bugha and Miro, who at the time were in 4th place. They were inside top 8 qualifying for finals, pretty much a shoe-in to qualify. Because they didn't get into that game and because they didn't restart, they dropped down to 10th outside of the top 8. There were a few other teams as well. We had Sprite's team, we had Clix and Day, so obviously it got a lot of attention when Clix and Day was streaming to tens of thousands of people. We had Rhythm not get in, we had Sloth not get in, we had Jeff not get in, and it was quite upsetting to see. Again, I myself just assumed, okay, 13 people aren't in, they're going to restart the game. But we got word from the official closed Discord, posted out by some of the pros within that Discord, that Epic made the decision to not restart the games. At this point, everyone was freaking out. I was live on my Twitch doing a viewing party. People were not happy, and rightfully so. It does lack a lot of competitive integrity. Even now, with the qualifiers, there's a little bit of an asterisk next to it. But Bugha and Miro did end up qualifying, which was awesome to see because that's what would have upset people a lot. So in the end, it didn't really seem like there was any harm or foul. I went back and looked at the other teams. Unless they got an insane game, which they could have, you never know. Sprite's team could have dropped like a 10-kill win. That's a lot of points. In this current format, a 10-kill win is 60 points. When qualification was around 130, 140, getting 60 points in a single game would have put a lot of teams up into qualifiers. So as much as in the end it didn't really look like it mattered because Bugha and Miro made it, it's still a big deal and it sets precedence going forward. If Bugha and Miro didn't qual, they would have been tough out of luck. They would have not qualified. And again, this is worth a share of $600,000. So pretty big deal. And it's just one of those things that makes the community just a little bit more upset and makes other people who may be checking out Fortnite for the first time just not take it that much more seriously. Because again, I feel like that game really should have been restarted. There needs to be some kind of hard definition from Epic on what warrants a game restart. Because again, when it was 40 people, they restarted. Obviously, it's 40% of the lobby. But when it's almost 20% of the lobby, we're still not restarting, and that's a little bit confusing. If you look at the actual official rules, it is 5.21 in the terms of service. I won't really read the whole thing, but basically what this melts down to is it's up to Epic. They have sole discretion to whether they want to do a restart or whether they don't, which gives them full control to do whatever they want. If 90 people didn't connect, there was only 10, they could choose to still run that game, and it's their company. Of course, they have the right to do this, but I would like some kind of a rule where maybe it's like up to a certain amount, we will always restart the games unless we explicitly decide not to. But most people can't really figure out a good reason why they didn't want to. The only reason I can really think of is because the NA East and NA West finals run back to back. They didn't want to push it out half an hour like they did with EU because it would then clash with the broadcast that was on. Maybe there's an issue with running 2 tournaments on tournament servers at the same time they hadn't accounted for. Maybe the games couldn't have flushed properly, but then again, EU, they pushed it back by half an hour and it caused no dramas at all. So I don't really know. Either way, it's sad to see. And it just felt like, again, it was one of those issues like EU not starting on time this morning, which pushed it back by half an hour, which made the players like in Russia were playing until very, very late in the evening. I think like 2 or 3 a.m. for some of those players. It caused an issue, but ultimately no one really cost anything. But on NA, it almost did. So when the FNCS has already felt a little bit rushed and people are already quick to jump on Epic's faults for why they're rushing it, when there are issues, people aren't quick to then forgive them. So it was a sad thing to see happen, but ultimately seeing Bugha and Miro still qualify with only 5 games was incredibly exciting. Sadly though, they pushed out Cented and Cold, who while didn't get a disconnect issue in that 5th game, Cented did get a disconnect issue in their 4th game. So they really only played 5 games and they just missed out. All right, now let's bring it back a little bit. I had to talk about that first, but let's go back to who didn't make it to round 3, because that's going to be important for when we now break down the round 3 leaderboard. And you're probably wondering where are the big names, and we had some absolutely huge upsets today. Let's go from top to bottom. EU, these are the big ones that I pulled out. Benji and Savage. I mean, I've got to give these guys a bit of an out here. This was a very interesting format. It was 7 games, 2 hours. So when you think Benji and Savage had a bit of an issue in their game 1, where they kind of, Savage went down mid-game, Benji tried to hold on, he tried to get the card, couldn't reboot, then they went down in spawn in game 2, which is only, 2 not so great games. That's 50 minutes in. They were 50 minutes into a 2-hour tournament at that point. This format was so difficult. Think about how many times you've died to something completely out of your control, a bug, Spider-Man, someone W keys you for no reason, you just don't get the drop spot properly. Take that and then think that you've only got 2 hours to get top 50 in the hardest regions in the world. It was really tough to see. And honestly, I was watching all the games in EU. I was doing, again, a viewing party, and I was just blown away. We watched one team. I watched a single team win a game in that 2 hours. The players were struggling, sadly. And it's a combination of you're versing the best of the best. It's top 400. You have a meta that does have a lot of things that can go wrong. And it's Fortnite. It's a battle royale with only 7 games and 2 hours to make it count. So before you jump all over these players and say they're washed and start freaking out, round 2, the next round 2 for qualifier 2, which is taking place not tomorrow, well, tomorrow as of this video going out, on Saturday basically, it's going to be 3 hours, 10 games. That's going to give them a little bit more room to kind of have those mistakes and still do well. I know you're going to say, Aussie, if they want to be the best of the best, they have to play perfect Fortnite and no mistakes. And again, I get that and I can agree to that partially, but I do want to explain this format was not the best indicator of who's doing well right now. There was a lot of RNG and who made it through and who didn't. So we had no Benji and Savage, no Mustache and Malabuka, Seti and Chapix, Freemock and Tozy Alpha, Antics and X Sweezy, Eyedrop and Jerky. Those were the big teams out of EU that didn't even make it to round 3. They didn't even get top 50 to then try to go on and get top 8. On NA East, we had Muzz and Avery, Scoped and Blake, Rise and Ages, Tragics and Skittles, Joji and Rokane, who missed out by a single placement, and then Creo and Vert. NA West, we had even more upsets. Remember, on NA West yesterday, we were already missing teams like Reet and Rex. We had Batman Bugha ended up making it through, but didn't make it out into round 3 now. Just NA West has been so interesting. We didn't have Whale and Arkram. We had no Whale and Arkram in the set lobbies, which is just ridiculous. A lot of people did not see that coming. We had Batman, Bugha, and Wheels not make it, and Favs and Snacky. So at this point, going into NA West round 3, you had no Reet and Rex, no Wavy Jacob and Chris, no Fikoi Godku, no 40 Arcadenox, Mekton and Chicken, no Favs and Snacky, and no Whale and Arkram. Like, just insane. I don't know what's going on NA West. It seems like the NA West teams are struggling even more than EU and NA, but you get the picture that I'm painting. There's a lot of teams who are struggling under this format. Now we've talked about who didn't even make it. Let's run through the top 8 in case you missed it nice and quick. Who qualified and going straight through into the grand finals? We had Rifler and Marion on 203. We had Hen and Queasy, no surprise there in second on 188. Phoenix and Ryzen, who I've seen popping off a lot at the moment. Very underrated team right now. 173 for them. DKS and Bad Sniper. I've been talking about how the French teams have been a little bit slow this season, but they're starting to really pick up pace coming into FNCS. Tripper and Zrogi. We had Kami and Teak, Pablo and Swag, Vidil and Rezon as our 8th place. And then we had Rescard and Scram losing on the tiebreak. This one was so unfortunate, especially because Rescard and Scram's final game was a 0 elim 38th. If they got a singular point, they would have made top 8. They would have gone through in the grand finals. Vidil and Rezon brought it back in their final game with a 3 elim 11th. Not a phenomenal game, but still a very, very good one. And then, of course, they won the tiebreak of the win because they got a 5 elim win in their first game. We did have some really notable performances from newly formed teams like Noah Riley and Aqua, their first time really playing together after forming, getting 115. They played absolutely phenomenally, just missed out on that one. They were dropping Bugle and they were fighting a few teams around. They had a couple of games of issues with Surge, but other than that, they're looking very good. Pink and Anas, a team that I thought honestly was going to get top 8, and I feel like probably would have if they weren't contested. They really haven't been contested in the past, but they are now getting contested on the hill of Covert Cavern because they kind of drop up on the hill and then go the llama split nearby. They've started playing that playstyle since Covert Cavern appeared, which I kind of shouted out as a reason why I think they're going to do better, but getting dropped on by Nate and Snazy, who did far worse. Pink and Anas did far, far better out of the drop spot. It did cost them, unfortunately, a couple games where they went down very early. Game 4, they went down on spawn, but I think they'll bring it back and they should be fine the week after. Tayson and Thomas were looking really, really good at one point. Unfortunately, it was right at the very end. They got a 44th, 17th, and 14th place in their last 3 games in a row. If they had a few more points, they easily could have qualified, but I saw no major issues to how they were playing. Mustache and Malabuka, coming off a massive hot streak, had a very inconsistent day. They had the highest point game of the day with a 13 elim win. That is 39 points worth of kills and 30 for the win. That's 69 points of their 89 was in a single game. So if they can get 2 games like that, just 2 games like that, that is going to be qualification if they can do that tomorrow in the qualifiers. So excited to see them play. There's obviously some other teams worth shouting out, but I'm sure we'll see them in qualifier too, and I'll get a chance to talk about them. Moving over to NA East, and I've already talked about this a little bit, but we had Commandment and Stretch winning the whole thing on 191 points, 6 matches, 1 win. They managed to beat out second by over 30 points, and a lot of people saying this, you know, Commandment and Stretch, they're not trying that hard at the moment. Cash cups aren't really their thing. They're not enjoying the game much. When it's FNCS, money on the line, that is when Commandment especially shows up, but Stretch has been pulling up big. They played so phenomenally today. So that also means that Stretch has now qualified for every single FNCS final, up there with Kanata, who also made it. That is now 13 grand finals Stretch is going to have played in once he plays in this one now as well. Absolutely freakish consistency from him. We had visuals in TK in second on 159. They brought it back very big in their last few games, getting a 4 elim third and a 3 elim second in their last 2 games to clutch up. We had Nani and Pump getting 159, tying with them. Bucky and Cam, who I think their points could have been higher. They honestly could have rivaled Commandment and Stretch for the first place slot, but they had qualified in 3 games. They opened up with 2 back-to-back wins, a 6 elim win and a 10 elim win, and then a 4 elim 11 to put them at over qualification in the first 3 games. And I think from there, they were just having fun. They were pushing every fight. They were playing aggressive, going crazy. Just Bucky was being Bucky. So huge shout out to them. We had Illest and Jack in 5th. We had Acorn and Kanata in 6th. Like I said, Kanata now having qualified for 13 grand finals. Also, Zemo and Npen, and then Miro and Bugha just clutching up their last game, being a 2 elim 5th with only 5 games played. And like I said, unfortunately, Cented and Cold missing out by 4 points, very solely due to the fact that Cented didn't connect. That one game Cented didn't connect is when Cold got keyed by himself, went down. If they could have gotten even 2 elims out of that game or just a few placement points, they would have qualified. But it does make me a little bit happier that at least it was Bugha and Miro who took the qualification spot, who also got messed up by a connection issue. So still sad, and I'm sure Cented and Cold will qualify in the round 3 in a couple days, but it feels bad. Again, some notable shout outs. We had Nosh and Paper do really, really well out of Covert Cavern. They were conned by Glace and Chucky, who also just miss out of Covert Cavern. Aviv and Squish, I feel like, and I've been doing this, I've been heavily sleeping on this team. They are placing top 10 so consistently in set lobbies, and now doing it in FNCS FNCS. I'd be very surprised to not see them make it into the grand finals. Threats and users doing really, really well. We had DJ and Yomzo being contested. They had to change up their playstyle. They did have Knifer contesting them at the crack shot, which messed them up a little bit. Pam's doing Thatcher up there, and across the board, it was a really, really stacked and very difficult finals. Now, I normally throw NA West in here, but NA West isn't even over yet. As you can see, it's pitch black here. It's almost midnight. I have just recorded this video after finishing a 13-hour stream. I'm trying to put in as much time as I can. This FNCS is short and condensed. I'm grinding it as hard as I can. You guys have been showing up big in the stream, so I absolutely love you for that. I'm sorry I can't include NA West. Maybe I can throw it in tomorrow's video when I talk about the round ones. All right, guys, that does it for another video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please chuck a like on it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And I'll see you in the next one.